Antiwar Radio, Chaos 92.7 FM in Austin, Texas. And want to welcome Gareth Porter back to the show. He's an investigative and independent historian and journalist. He writes for the American Prospect, Huffington Post, and Interpress Service. You can find all of his IPS articles at antiwar.com/Porter, including today's top headline on the page, official, Iran accepts talks proposal. Welcome back to the show, Gareth.
Hi, Scott. Glad to be back again.
Yeah, one day I think I'm just going to have to make you my co-host. Although I don't know if you'd ever really get any of the work done that I need to bring you on to ask you about all the time if we did that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't get the work done that I need to do either.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, so anyway, we'll just keep it at once or twice a week, I guess. So here's your story, and this broke yesterday during the show. We talked about it just a little bit. There's this P5+1, which is some fancy name for the UN Security Council and Germany. And
it's the 5 permanent members. It's Britain, France, U.S., Russia, and China. And plus Germany, the non-Security Council member.
Yeah, and this actually was floated, I think, this was in the New Yorker article, that some German foreign minister said, well, we're going to make them an offer that they just stop expanding their program, backing off the Bush ultimatum that they must cease all uranium enrichment immediately, but that we could begin to have some talks toward the eventual creation of some talks or something like that if they would only stop expanding the program.
This is a device to break the ice, basically, and as you say, to break through the U.S. ultimatum, or rather simply an impossible or very difficult condition for Iran to agree to, which is that they suspend or end their uranium enrichment as a price to actually talk with the folks who want to negotiate with them. And at least it offers an opportunity to begin talks and basically see what happens. I mean, this was tried last year by the P5, or rather by Javier Solana, and unfortunately it did not have any specific time frames attached to it, and that's why one of the reasons apparently it was not agreed to by Iran. But this time it does have a 6-week time frame for this preliminary talk.
Okay, now, did Condoleezza Rice say this was okay to go ahead and offer?
Well, apparently so, yes. I mean, I'm sure this would not have been offered had not the State Department signed off on it.
So then your headline really should have been, Bush loses and backs down again.
It could be certainly viewed as a tentative or as a tactical loss for the Vice President's office, as opposed to the U.S. government.
Not that it's a good idea to taunt these men.
Of course, yes, and I think that would have been accurate to say that, within the U.S. bureaucracy, it's a small but meaningful victory for those who would like to see some negotiation.
Okay, now last November, the CIA and 15 other American intelligence agencies came together and said, don't worry about it. They haven't had a nuclear weapons program since 2003. That's when they abandoned it. And even at the progress they're going now, they would be technically capable of beginning to enrich weapons-grade uranium to make a bomb sometime late next year, maybe, but that's, quote, very unlikely. And so the whole world kind of went, phew, boy, it looks like the pressure's off here, and we don't have to have a war or suffer through Bush and Cheney thinking that they have to have a war after all. And yet it sort of turned out, Gareth, that really didn't matter, and that all the propaganda just has continued to roll right along, that they're making nuclear weapons. The Democratic presidential candidate this year agrees and everything like that. So I wonder whether this is even going to make a difference, that the Iranians are saying, okay, fine, let's sit down at the table then if that's the way you'll make it.
Well, it's going to make a difference if the White House decides to let it make a difference, obviously, and that's the imponderable that we're all sort of faced with trying to ponder. The question really is, whether the White House believes that it can succeed in this sort of all-out pressure campaign, which is aimed at forcing Iran to bow, sort of in an overt and symbolic way to the Bush administration's and the P5+1 as a whole demand that it cease the uranium enrichment. The chances of that are, it seems to me, infinitesimally small. And, in the final months, the choice really does present itself. Are they going to bomb Iran, or are they going to try something different and see if they can't come up with some sort of at least sort of North Korea-like shorter-term framework agreement that looks toward the future to a final settlement of the issue, and it's not inconceivable that could happen. I think we should have at least on the table the possibility. We should entertain the possibility that there is this sort of framework agreement that could be reached, in the final months of the administration. Should the glimmer of realism alight in the brains of a couple of, or at least one person in the White House.
Yeah, well, I saw a thing, Glenn Greenwald actually linked to a thing on the Mother Jones blog about, it's just a bunch of different experts talking about how they doubt that there's going to be a war. And most of what they did was cite, arguments, reality, and these terrible things might happen if we were to have a war and that kind of thing. And that's sort of always been the debate, whether any of those questions are even relevant inside the White House when they talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that of course is the question, whether the degree of realism that prevails there is such that the realities of the military situation, that is that no one can guarantee that every bit of Iranian ability to retaliate is going to be hit, and that the Iranians can in fact make life very difficult for us regardless of how good our military is. And secondly, and perhaps even more important, is the economic reality that is associated with the whole threat to Iran. And actually, any military move against Iran, we know that it's going to cause a spike in the price of oil that will make previous spikes look like child's play. This is really the single biggest factor, I'm guessing, that could restrain the White House.
I'm no expert on the details of this kind of thing, but it seems to me that if you double the price of a barrel of oil or something like that you risk just shutting down the entire international division of labor and the global economy as it's grown.
There is a breaking point here, and I think that they are perilously close to sort of going over that line, and that even if these people are living in a kind of dream world as far as the military realities are concerned, and as you well know, I'm prepared to accept that possibility. It's even more difficult to believe that they would not understand the economic perils associated with this, which are a dead cinch certainty.
Right. Now, when you talk about the oil spike that would happen in the event of war, making the other ones pale by comparison, the other ones that you're talking about are the ones that we're suffering through right now. And, in fact, I think this was a comment that someone left on one of the blog entries at Antiwar Radio about one of your recent interviews, I forget which one, that said, don't fall for the scam. The Iranians and the Americans are basically just, winking at each other and escalating all this rhetoric in order to drive up the price of oil so they can charge a lot more for the same amount of work.
Well, I mean, this is one sort of take on it, which is more conspiratorially based. I mean, I think that this administration, simply is not able to control all the factors that go into this situation, and particularly cannot control the economic side of this. And I think the whole effort by the Saudis to try to edge the price downward is certainly one of the things in which the U.S. and the Saudis are working together. The higher the price of oil is, and of course this has been going up for the last 2 to 3 years, the better off Iran is, the stronger Iran is. I mean, this is certainly one of the key determinants of Iran's power position in the world is the price of oil. Because, back 10 years ago, if we just roll the tape backward and look at the situation in Iran as of the late 1990s, they were looking very vulnerable to a lower price of oil, which prevailed at that point, because of their situation of potentially, is not just potential, but great likelihood of essentially not being able to maintain their level of oil export. And their exports of oil are, something 75-85% of their export earnings. And that meant that they would be in serious financial difficulty. But, of course, with the series of spikes in the price of oil now, they're sitting pretty. They have all the export earnings they can, really handle. And that's a serious blow to any notion that the United States could sort of force the Iranians to the table on their terms.